Welcome, everyone, to an edition of Inside the Dugout. I'm Ron Smolin. I'm here with Coach John Kolasinski from Siena Heights University baseball team. How you doing, Coach?
Doing well.
Good to see you. So, got some questions for you, Coach. You know, a little over 5 years ago, I was sitting here with my wife, actually in the same exact spot, and I realized that you are not from Eastern Michigan. You know, I realized either unless you took a wrong turn from Interstate 95, how did you get here to Adrian and Siena Heights?
Well, I had started, I was at Husson College, which is now Husson University in Maine. That's where I attended school and graduated, was a volunteer assistant, and then was the head coach for 15 years. I was serving on the World Series committee out in Lewiston, Idaho at that time while I was there. And our athletic director called, and she said that we were going to go make the move to Division III. And that wasn't the agreement that we had for baseball, because baseball would not have a conference. So I was pretty devastated. It wasn't the athletic director, that wasn't her call. It was the administration above that. So I just happened to, at that time in the World Series, with Sam Riggleman, who was at Dallas Baptist. He left Dallas Baptist at the end of that year and came back up here to Spring Arbor, where he was an assistant coach with Hank Burbridge. And I mentioned to Sam at that point, I said, hey, if you hear anything in the NAI that they're looking for a coach, et cetera, let me know. And lo and behold, that September, they had a WAC meeting, and Coach Smith, who was the athletic director at that time, was good friends with Hank, and also knew Sam from at that point. And as they were walking out, Fred said to Hank, I'm looking for a baseball coach. And right away, Hank and Sam both gave my name to Coach. He gave me a call. I came out and interviewed, and then took over and started in December in December of 23. So I took over in the middle of the year. So just one of those things of knowing people and that type of thing. And it was an opportunity for me just to do coach baseball only. At Husson, I was doing athletic facilities and residential life as well as baseball. So it was something that I was looking forward to, was becoming a full-time baseball coach, and it worked out that way.
So what year was that when you came?
That would have been 2003. I said 23. It was 2003, and the first season that I was on was the spring of 2004. Yeah.
And did you take over for Gordy Thiessen then?
I took over for Gordy, yes. Yep.
And then Gordy went down to Hillsdale then, or was he went down to Hillsdale? Where did Gordy go?
Gordy went over to Adrian College, okay, as the pitching coach. He was also doing some counseling. Gordy had his master's, or has his master's in counseling, so he was doing that and went to the private sector, went part-time over there, and then went over to Hillsdale when Eric Tyson, who was our grad assistant, Eric had gone over to Hillsdale to be the assistant coach. When he got the head coaching job, Gordy went from Adrian over to be the full-time assistant at Hillsdale.
Not to get too deep, but now Eric, again, played here. Over there now, he's with the Brewer organization as a hitting coach. Isn't it, Eric?
Yeah. Eric came here as a grad assistant. He played at Illinois State. Oh, okay. And it's an interesting thing with Eric is that he's a pitcher. He was a pitcher in college, but really got into the technical part of hitting while at Hillsdale, and was able to get into the Brewers organization, and has moved up steadily, and is now the assistant hitting coach with the Brewers organization in the big leagues under Al LaBeouf. And a little tie to that is Al LaBeouf is from Connecticut. I went to baseball camp with Al for many, many years back in Connecticut. He's a couple of years older, but so there's a couple ties there, guys that we know or I've known.
So thinking back, I mean, you have a couple of years on me, but we're from the same generation. Thinking back, I mean, I've got three older brothers. I had hand-me-down cleats, hand-me-down glove. You remember the gold and black Eastons we would use, and there was no bat bag, there was no water bottles. If you were thirsty, you went out and got yourself, a drink from the water fountain. Other than the equipment, changes. How has the game changed since you started coaching?
The game has changed in a couple of ways. The athlete is bigger and stronger and faster. There's no question about that. I think that's just the development of athletes all the way through with the training that they do in weight rooms and could be with personal trainers or off season, et cetera. You got to remember part of it when I was growing up is that weightlifting was taboo for baseball players. That was not encouraged. And then as I got into the coaching here, it became more and more prevalent with that. So I think that's the positive change that you see. I think the negative change that you see with the players right now is that there's a lack of knowledge of how the game is played and the understanding of it. And we now at the college level have to teach more than we had to in the past. And I think that it goes back to where we are with travel baseball now. Everybody gets wrapped up in, well, I played 8 games on the weekend. That's great, but we're never learning the game. We're not having a practice to go over cutoffs and relays or bunt defenses. And to go along with that, few of our athletes now, our baseball players all across the country, know the history of the game or can sit down and watch the game and understand it. And that's our society now, our young people's societies. Everything's got to be instant. It's got to be on that phone with them. They're not going to sit or listen to a game on the radio.
Right.
We grew up listening to the game on the radio.
AM radio.
Yeah, and no matter what we were doing, if we were helping our parents around the house or something with a chore, the game was on a Saturday afternoon or at night. You sat on the porch or something like that. We'd learn the game that way. That's the two big differences that I see in the game right now.
Yeah, that's how I learned how to score the game. I listened to 760 AM, Tigers baseball, and I had me a book, and I learned how to score the game by doing that. So you probably have to do a lot of teaching then, with cutoffs and stuff with practice. Probably have some of your players. You got to work on a lot of that stuff.
We do a lot more than we had to in the past. No question about that. That's something that's just not it's not taught. And part of it too is a change in the coaching. We used to see coaches that made it a career, would coach 30, 40 years, somewhere along that. We don't see that anymore. We see coaches maybe 5, 10 years, and then they move off into something else. And a lot of it is the economic part of it, where coaches don't make a lot of money. Okay, I think everybody thinks that, well, you see a Tim Corbin at Vanderbilt or Jim Schlossnagle at Texas. Yeah, they're making big money. But the high school coaches and the Division II and III coaches, they're making a good living. But if you go into pharmaceutical sales, you're going to make a lot more money, okay, or some other field, and have better hours with your family, et cetera. So we're seeing it. That's a change that we're seeing. No question about that.
So thinking back of, you spend a lot of time with, many innings, many outs, I'm sure you've seen some triple plays,
Yeah.
What is the weirdest play that you can relate to that you've ever seen?
The weirdest play that we've ever related to seeing played. Wow. That's an issue. I got to think.
And maybe it's a triple play. Maybe it's a weirdest triple play.
I think when you think of weird plays, it's something that you don't see often,
Right.
et cetera. And I think one currently that we had last year on our spring trip, and not many people would know this, but there was the appeal of a runner missing a base by the opposing team that we're playing, and that they put the second baseman into foul territory to back up first base on the throw.
Concordia, Nebraska.
And that's not a legal play. And I can say that's only the second time I've seen it happen, because the one time it happened in a big league game, and I can remember them talking about it. And it was so unique that it stuck in my mind, and that's why I remembered that day along that line. So I think that's pretty unique right there. That doesn't come up very often at all.
Well, I have to admit, so I was there. I was calling the play-by-play, and people were, and as you probably know, we've talked, I'm an umpire, and I did not know the actual rule, which I had thought that it was amazing that you knew that.
Yeah.
And, but again, as you know, if you've ever been caught and seen that, or if you've been called out on it, you tend to remember that. So,
Right.
So back to memories, when I think of my memories here, coming up in my fourth year of being part of Siena Heights and being at this field, I think back a couple of years of the Thomas Backaway walk-off home run, as you remember. Can you think of one of your greatest memories of coaching, that one or two that kind of come to mind of your time that you want to share?
Here at Siena?
Anywhere, any of your memories.
Well, I think there's a couple that stand out all the way through. I'll go back to 1993 when I was at Husson, and we at that time the NAI wasn't associated with conferences. You had districts, so there were 32 districts across the country that were divided up, and you would have 8 regionals with 4 teams in it, and those 8 winners would go to the NAI World Series. And we were fortunate in '93 to win the district at that point. And we got into a regional play down in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. So we, home of Joe Namath, and at Geneva. And we went into the 9th inning down by 9 runs to Wilmington College, now a Division II school. And we had 3 players in that club that were drafted from the 18th to the 24th round, very good players. And we came back to score 10 runs in the bottom of the 9th to win the ball game. And that's one of those things that sticks in your mind, because you never know. We always talk about in the game, you don't know when the game is over. You don't know when the game is over. That's the great thing about our game, is it doesn't have a clock. It only has outs. And as long as you keep conserving those outs, you get a chance to win. That was pretty special time of memory there. A memory here, I think, is Brett Howard back in 2012 walking off with a home run at that point against Northwestern Ohio. And that was a year where we got on a run at the end and won our conference tournament here. It was a 5-team tournament. We were the 5th seed and won the 4 games. And that's very unusual to be a 5th seed and win a conference tournament. But that, helped springboard us, getting us going, where we actually beat Caleb Bort, who's pitching in the big leagues now here, who was pitching for Aquinas on the last weekend, to get another one of those wins to get us into that conference tournament. So I think those are a couple that stand out, one here at Siena, and then one back at Husson.
Some great memories. So looking forward to 2025, looking forward to opening day here coming up less than a week by the time this broadcast goes. Thinking back of 2024, I'm looking over here. The people on the broadcast can't see it, but I see a couple of Gold Gloves. 2024 team, you've got a couple of Gold Gloves that have moved on, a couple of all-conference players. That was a very good season, but a lot of excitement for 2025. We got some new players coming in. Speak to what's coming up and what people should be excited about coming up.
Well, it's a different time. We graduated 15 players last year and graduated a core of our everyday players. So we went into more than ever, we went into the, if you want to call it the transfer portal, the transfer area, which is becoming more and more common, to bring guys in. And there's some talent there. There's no question there's some talent there. And hopefully, as we went through the fall, the first couple of weeks, I'm like, we may have made a mistake here. But as the fall went along, we gelled together and came together. But we're playing pretty well at the end in the scrimmages that we were allowed to play. And I think that if we can continue to do that, we'll have a successful year. Now, we're going to test them right away. This will be the most difficult schedule and test schedule of games that we've had in many, many years. When we go to Florida, it's a single game, doubleheader, 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 day off, doubleheader, single game. So what we're trying to do out of that is to get the experience of our guys of being under pressure, being tired, playing when they're tired, concentrating not only physically tired, but mentally tired, concentrating there. And also that gives us enough games with the 2 weekends before that we can slot people in and see, well, this guy definitely can do this guy can definitely do that for us. So there's some talent there. Now it's a question of how it will gel together for us, when it will gel, those types of things.
Yeah, I got to watch. I got to be a part and watch the scrimmages, and I saw what you're talking about. What I also saw was just the team really kind of coming together in gelling kind of in some culture where people were really enjoying themselves, and hopefully, like you say, that transfers. I just saw people really enjoying themselves, some camaraderie that was similar to last year. I saw people really getting along and having a good time, and then working as a team, and split with a very good Hillsdale Division II team down there at Hillsdale. So I'm really excited about that as a fan and as a parent to watch some of that. So my final question that I have for you today. Last fall, you had announced that this is going to be your final season after 35 plus years. What do you think you'll miss the most as a coach?
I'll miss the 3 hours out here every day. Okay, I'll miss that part of talking with players at practice, instructing them, teaching them. I'll miss the friends that I've made in the game, the fellow coaches, et cetera, that type of thing. That'll be difficult to give up. There's no doubt about that. The game of baseball and the friendships that you make in the game are the strongest ones you ever have in your life. And I probably said that to Christian when we were recruiting him here and that type of thing. There's something different about the game. That will be very difficult to give up. But I'm fortunate. I think that those friendships that I have will continue along the line and that type of thing. I will not miss. I don't know if you want to go in there, but I will not miss the paperwork. I will not miss in the staff meeting of hearing certain things. I won't miss learning how to use such and such computer system, or how I have to do that. And I say this all the time to our athletic director. All the time I said, why do I have to do this? Do you have to learn how to hit a fungo? I'm a baseball person. I don't have those types of things, but that's what I'll miss. There's no question about it. I won't miss the cold.
I was going to say,
I will not miss the cold.
You got to miss. Well, no. For some of us have done travel baseball, sitting on a bucket. You don't sit on a bucket, but that's the days of sitting on a bucket with seeing the snow flurries and all that type of stuff. So
no, I will not miss the cold. And that's another. If you talk about one to step aside, at 32 years old and 35 years old, it's very easy to stay out for a doubleheader 6 or 7 hours. At 62, it's much more difficult. And we don't realize that, we don't understand that when we're younger, but when we get older, you have to understand there are some things that you can do and you can't do anymore. So that's one thing. I'll tell you, I can do a 3-hour single game, but the doubleheader, I go home, I hit the chair, and I'm out.
Yeah. Well, sounds good, Coach. I appreciate your time. I appreciate sharing, and we're all looking forward to the season to start. It'll be here before we know it. Starting down in Kentucky, first couple of weekends down in Kentucky, and then before you know it, we will be in sunny Florida for, I believe, a 9-day stretch with 1 day off and a whole plethora of games, and we'll be on sharing some of those games here live. So, again, this wraps up another episode of Inside the Dugout. I am Ron Smolin.